Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Olga. So today I'd like to give you an insight into these random queues, and in fact they're not actually quite so random as you might think. You can actually play with them and make sure you always get the exact queue you want. Let's say I'm going to queue into the trial queue, mainly just because I want this daily bonus, this massive boost of raw astral diamonds, so I can pretty much get my 100,000 and refine that every day. So if we were to run the random trial queue, my most likely success chance is going to be Rise of Tiamat, as we can see down there. Assault on Svargborg is pretty doable as well, but there are a few mechanics you need to know, and if people don't break you out of ice quick enough, then you're dead and you're out. However, with Rise of Tiamat, it's a lot more forgiving. You can even fail one of the runs once and then you can go at it again. What I mean is that when you have to kill the 5 heads of Tiamat, if you don't manage to kill them all within the timer, you'll go back to the phase with the clerics and have to kill the adds, and then you can have another shot at killing the heads of Tiamat and they won't all heal back to full. So in that way it can be a lot more forgiving. And lastly, Demogorgon, that can just be an absolute mess with new players because of all the portals, the ad spawning, and then they're ending up just being a lot more damage on everybody than they can't survive that. So if you want to go into the trial queue, I highly recommend either you'll have a guild where you can fill up your entire public queue here. You can go and invite people and they'll join you, but again, that's not guaranteed. You might have a more inactive guild and not be able, or you could even go to Protector's Enclave and ask people to join. But even with that said, it's might not be very likely that you'll get a group who can complete Demogorgon. You yourself might be too undergeared to be able to take that on. So Rise of Tiamat being the most forgiving queue, that's the one you want to always be getting within the trial queue. Now you can do this trick for the advanced dungeon queue as well. Let's say you always want to get Lair of the Mad Mage, you can do so. Same with the skirmishes and same with the dungeon queues. However, it will require you to have at least one other person to help you out into getting into the queue. So what I did here on screen, you can see that I'm in a party with Psy. I'm not in a queue with Psy. However, what he's doing while we're on Discord is he's queuing up into the trial Rise of Tiamat. Now, this will of course have to require him to have actually unlocked the trial specifically to be able to queue it. So you'd have to have completed the Tyranny of Dragons campaign to have that fully unlocked. So while he's in the Rise of Tiamat queue, I'm gone into the trial queue. Now what will happen is you need to sync it up so that when the queue pops for me, it should pop the same time for Psy. And when that happens, you know you've basically got the same queue. So then you can hit accept at the same time and ta-da! You can see it in the chat here. I'm all excited. We predict that it's going to be Tiamat because the queue popped at the same time for me and Psy, and we accepted it at the same time. And you can see we get Rise of Tiamat, and he's even in my party. At this point, you can see I had a few other people in my queue group as well. That will also help out things mightily, just having a few other people. And especially if you queue as a tank or a healer, you'll even have higher chances of the queue popping sooner than later. Just be aware that if the queue pops for, let's say, me, but not Psy, then I need to hit decline. However, if the queue pops for Psy and not me, he needs to hit decline. And then you both queue again, and you need to make sure you wait until they pop at the same time. You have a 1 minute period for yourself to accept, so it will still pop at the same time, and then you can see you'll have the timer, it will tick on, and then you can hit accept. However, if they don't pop at the same time, then you know you're not going to end up in the same queue, and you both decline, and then you go and you queue again. Now you could have 9 other people in your random queue group. Make sure that the other person who's actually queuing in Rise of Tiamat will actually fit into your group. So if you already have 2 tanks and 2 healers, make sure that other person's a DPS. But if you miss a healer, then make sure it's a healer, or if you miss a tank, make sure that other person's a tank. And that way, when you have your queue group full, it will pretty much pop instantly if you're just missing that one person who is queuing that specific trial already. However, of course, it can pop without the other person popping as well, so then just decline. And you can, if you're queued up with another group, then make sure in the match options here you have keep queue group together if a member leaves. So if you decline the queue, then nobody gets kicked from the group. You can see the role bonus here with the random trial queue will usually be a healer or a tank, and you get like nearly 8,000 extra raw fossil diamonds. It's pretty massive, and I would highly recommend having a support build, especially when you're new to the game. That's why I got pretty far as a paladin fairly easily, because these queues, if it says healer, I switch to my healer. If it says tank, I switch to tank. And there's no problem there. However, there are definitely some DPS classes like the Rogue, the Wizard, the Ranger. None of them have an extra power gun that is other than DPS. So I can understand there, and that can be frustrating. And you're just stuck on DPS, and you're going to have to hope that you find some friends who are tanks and healers who can back you up. And I highly recommend finding a tank, befriending them, same with the healer, and just regularly playing with them. The more you play with a consistent group, the more fun and easier this game will become. So overall, we complete our Rise of Tiamat. You can see in the bottom right there, we get just over 57,000 rough astral diamonds. We could do this once more. Unfortunately, we lose the daily bonus, so I won't gain that much more anymore. But you can see if you gain like 50,000 rough astral diamonds from the trial queue, you could do the advanced queue, and then you're done. You pretty much got your maximum amount of rough astral diamonds. That being said, if you pick up one of these role bonuses, if you don't, well, there's the skirmish queue and the dungeon queue you could still do for the daily bonus as well. Now, there are a lot more other options to actually earn rough astral diamonds, more solo friendly ways as well, and I shall go over them in its own dedicated video so we don't get this clogged up too much. As for Rise of Tiamat and some tips on how to complete it, well, you can see we're doing it here, and we're doing it fairly successfully when I only brought in 2 pre-made DPSers, otherwise I'm a tank and I have a healer friend with me. Now, the trick to get the most damage in this trial is, in actual fact, to have a companion which basically grants combat advantage to everybody on the target it hits. You can see with this Too Many Legs ability, it will cause the target who's struck by it to basically grant combat advantage to you and your allies, and this can be pretty massive against those dragon heads because you can't get behind it or you can't flank it to gain combat advantage. Now, the pseudo dragon has that ability as well, but the uptime on it is nowhere near as long as this. You can also have going in using stealth smoke bomb for that effect as well. So ideally, if you are a tank or a healer, or you just want to support the group, you would have a Black Death Scorpion. You don't even have to upgrade it. You can have it on purple. However, you can see, yeah, the prices get pretty high, and I don't expect everybody to have one of these, but if one person has it, farming the Rise of Tiamat trial can be so much easier. Otherwise, just try and make sure when you're defending the clerics, don't fight the enemies right next to the clerics, because a lot of enemies will have AoE hits, and if they hit the clerics, the progress bar will stop going up. And the quicker the progress bar gets full, the sooner you can move on to defeating the dragon heads. Now, the dragon heads have all these specific breath weapons, which when you actually at the very beginning kill the supports, you can pick up a dragon jewel. Now, I foolishly don't do so here, but the ones I would recommend is mainly just the green one and the red one. The other dragons don't do too much with their breath weapons. They're either easily avoidable, or yeah, you can basically tank their hits fairly confidently. So overall, that is my trick in how to always get a certain trial, dungeon, skirmish from even your random queues. You need a friend who queues up at the same time as you, and when they both pop together, you accept. If they pop and it didn't pop for the other person, you decline and you queue again. If it instantly pops for you but not your mate, then you decline, and you'll keep doing so until you both get the same pop at the same time. You can both hit to accept, and you'll know you're going to be in that particular queue which your mate queued into. Now, of course, you will have to be the one who queues into Rise of Tiamat, while your friend will basically go and queue into the random trial queue, and that way you can do 2 of the queues. You will get still a bonus of astral diamonds from completing the dungeon, or even some rewards, but you won't get that daily bonus from doing one of these random queues if you queue up specifically for said trial or dungeon, etc. So overall, hopefully this is at least somewhat helpful to you guys. Yes, this is an MMO, a mass multiplayer online game, and it's very party dependent. You ideally need to have friends to successfully play this game. you need to have other people you actually play with. So overall, if I presented this well, consider leaving the video a like, and if you're new around here, consider subscribing. We'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.